Today I'm bringing you another story. This is about a girl called Nwainene and her slave called Amuche. Once upon a time, in a town called Igbo, there was a king and a wife who had a daughter they called Nwainene. Nwainene was very beautiful, very, very beautiful. And they did everything they could to make sure that Nwainene was happy. They got so many slaves surrounding her to do anything she wanted. If she coughed, somebody would find out why she was coughing and take care of it. If she shakes her head, the slaves will be running around trying to make her happy. But then the slaves were not happy that they had to be running around like this because of one child. However, amongst the slaves, there was one called Amuche. Amuche showed so much love to Nwainene, praising her mother, talking about Nwainene's beauty, talking about how honest and how obedient Nwainene was, and kept praising and praising and praising her, and endeared herself to Nwainene's parents. Nwainene's parents then trusted her with their daughter Nwainene and left the two of them to be growing along each other. And anywhere they sent they sent Amuche with her. If Nwainene went to play with other princes from the neighboring towns, Amuche went with her so that she would protect Nwainene. However, Amuche herself was learning all the mannerisms of Nwainene and all the mannerisms of princess and princesses, and at making herself look like she was also a princess. The way she walked, the way she talked, the way she behaved, she was all the time emulating Nwainene. Nwainene then turned into a young lady. It was time to get married. Many suitors were coming. The king decided to do it in a unique way. He invited all the suitors, princes, to come to his place and stay for 7 days. That's 1 week. He was going to entertain them, do everything, but Nwainene will be seeing them from hiding and looking at them to see how they were behaving, to see who she would marry. So they all came. The king cooked so much food that people were eating and rolling on the ground, brought out so much drink that people were drinking and getting drunk. All these princes were eating all this food, drinking and tumbling on the ground, playing roughly. But there was one prince that sat at a corner. He would eat a little, he would drink a little, and then he would talk so wisely, like he was a reincarnation of an old person. It kept happening this way for 7 days. On the 7th night, Nwainene was told to come out and pick a suitor. Nwainene came out and picked Ifat. Everybody shouted, jubilated. Her parents were happy that she was able to choose somebody. So the rest of the princes went home. Then they talked to Nwainene and said, okay, Nwainene, you're going to go visit Ifatu. Ifatu will go home now. Then after some days, you will go and visit Ifatu so that Ifatu will also present you to his own family. Ifatu agreed and left. Nwainene's parents got Nwainene ready, put gold, silver, decorations on her body, and she was looking so elegant and beautiful, more beautiful than she was anyway. And Amuche also dressed up in a way a slave can dress up. She dressed up. Two of them were to go, so she accompanied Nwainene to go. to Olu, where Ifat lived, because Ifat was from Olu and Nene was from Igbo. So on the way to Olu, they had to cross a mighty river. There are places you could cross the river, not anywhere. When they got to the river, the banks of the river, Amuche called Nwainene and said, we've been walking for so long, you're sweating. It's not good for you to be sweating and smelling when you meet your husband. Let's take a bath here. Nwainene said, what about all the decorations? Let's go. He said, I will put Ufio on you again. I will do all the decorations again after you've taken your bath. So when you cross the river, your husband will see you in your full elegance. And she said, okay. She took off her clothes, took off everything, went by the side of the river to take her bath. Amuche came and pushed her into the big, deep part of the river, and she drowned. Amuche turned around, took her bath, took everything Nwainene was wearing and wore it, and then pretended to be Nwainene. She crossed the river. When she crossed the river, she went down the hill and saw Ifat waiting for them, because there were supposed to be two of them. But she was the only one coming. Ifat looked and was confused. He couldn't fathom how Nwainene's parents would leave just Nwainene in that time of kidnapping, just leave her to come alone. But he waited. As Nwainene was coming down, that was Amuche pretending to be Nwainene. Amuche was crying and lamenting and bitterly crying and crying and crying. Ifat rushed to her and held her and asked, why are you crying so bitterly? Where's your slave? Uche now pretended to be Nwainene, said, oh, my slave Uche died in the river. She couldn't cross. She didn't know how to swim. And then the river carried her. And I had to come out alone. And then she started crying again and crying. Amuche hugged her, took her home, introduced her to his parents. And but every day, Amuche was getting uglier and uglier. From deep inside, she was crying, and it was surfacing on her face. Ifat could not understand what was going on. So in order to save the woman she thought was Nwainene, she sent for the mother to come and sent somebody to tell them that the mother should come and take care of the lady, because he didn't know why she was crying so much and it was affecting her health. So Nwainene's mother then rushed to be by the side of the daughter. On getting to the river, she hit her left toe on a stone and screamed, Nwainene, my daughter. When she screamed, a voice came from deep inside the river and started singing. Echiko kwelizu na bo Nwainene dalobo. Nwainene chiko kwelizu na bo Nwainene dalobo. Nwainene nne ya sịrọ ka ọ chọba Nwainene dalobo. Nwainene nne ya sịrọ ka ọ chọba nwa dalobo. Nwainene biko jebekwa ebe ijije rapụ nwa dalobo. Nwainene biko jebekwa ebe ijije rapụ nwa dalobo. Nwainene. The woman stood there confused. It was the voice of her daughter, but she couldn't see her singing. It was singing from inside the river. She didn't continue her journey. She ran back to Igbo to call her husband and said, come and hear what I'm hearing. I don't understand it. The husband followed her with his own slaves. They got to the river, and the woman shouted again, Nwainene nwame, and the song came out again from deep inside the river. Echiko kwelizu na bo Nwainene dalobo. Nwainene chiko kwelizu na bo Nwainene dalobo. Nwainene nne ya sịrọ ka ọ chọba Nwainene dalobo. Inene nne ya sịrọ ka ọ chọba Inene dala ọbọ. Inene biko jebekwa ebe ije rapụ nwa dala ọbọ. Inene, the song was simply saying, it is now 2 market weeks, 8 days since Inene died, got lost. And the mother has not looked for Inene, and the father has not looked for Inene. Please go where you are going. Leave me to be the lost child. They couldn't understand. So they sent for Ifat. Somebody crossed the river, went and called Ifat to come and listen to the song. Ifat came, and then the mother shouted again, Inene nwame. Inene started singing again. Echiko kwelizu na bo nwa Inene dala ọbọ. Inene chiko kwelizu na bo nwa Inene dala ọbọ. Inene nne ya sịrọ ka ọ chọba Inene dala ọbọ. Nne ya sịrọ ka ọ chọba Ine nwa dala ọbọ. Inene biko jebekwa ebe ijije rapụ nwa dala ọbọ. Inene di ya sịrọ ka ọ chọba Inene dala ọbọ. Inene biko jebekwa ebe ijije rapụ nwa dala ọbọ. Inene, this time around she said even her husband didn't look for the lost Inene. Okay, so then they realized something terrible had happened. They decided to go and see the person impersonating Inene. When they were about to enter the compound, and Amuche saw them coming and took the hairpin, a very mighty hairpin that they used in decorating her hair, and pierced her own heart and fell and died. When they reached where Amuche was lying, Inene's mother cried and lamented. The father cried. Amuche cried. Amuche then instructed the other slaves in his own compound to take Amuche. In fact, instructed the other ones in his compound to take Amuche and put in the evil forest. And that's how Amuche ended up in the evil forest where evil people were buried. Well, you've heard our story. You tell us what you think, and I hope you enjoy it.